Welcome to the Rebel Justice Podcast. I'm Trystan Kent. This is the fifth and last in our series featuring refugee voices, so do check out the last four if you haven't already. This episode, we're speaking with the amazing activist and poet Parwana Amiri, who received international recognition after the release of her book of poetry, Letters from Moria, My Pen Will Not Break, But Borders Will. Parwana left Afghanistan with her family when she was just 15 years old and arrived in Greece, first living in Moria and then Ritsona refugee camps, both notorious for the appalling conditions faced by refugees there and the lack of support. During this time, Parwana began joining community groups such as self-organised schools for the children living there, as well as becoming increasingly vocal as a political activist, rallying people to protest and fight back against the way refugees were being treated. It was at Moria that she also released her first book, and has continued writing beautiful and thought-provoking poetry to an international audience while using this growing platform to raise awareness of refugee issues and to bring about change. Parwana joins us today to tell us her story and share some of the fantastic poetry from her recent book, We Will Fly Higher. So, Parwana Amiri, thank you so much for coming on to the Rebel Justice Podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to share my voice once more with your audiences.
Fantastic. No, we're delighted to have you. It's such an honor to have you. So I wanted to ask you about your background, both your history, how you became a refugee and an activist, but also your background with writing, how it was that you first started to really express yourself through writing.
Hey everyone, I am Parwana Amiri from Afghanistan. In 2019, I was with my family in Moria camp, where we end up to start the experience of journey of living in a biggest refugee camp in Europe. And of course, being a refugee and also having the passion to start talking about the condition, about the injustices and the circumstance was not really easy. In the first days, it was really hard to understand everything because being with the family and also being alone in other way and being excluded from the basic rights. Because if you get basic information about the Moria refugee camp, you can find out through the articles written about this camp. You can see how injustice, how terrible the life condition for the thousands of refugees was. We were first to flee our country in 2018. And after being for 1 year in Turkey, then we were in the Moria camp. And honestly, everything in the beginning was sort of that I just wanted to express my feelings in a way. And I just wanted to start, finding my way. But writing helped me in many ways. I could start writing by talking about the daily condition, by reflecting the situation in a very basic language, and as well as talking about the stories of people that were around me. And then I noticed that I was the first refugees writing the first book in that enormous, terrible camp. And after that, in Ritsona refugee camp, as the biggest refugee camp in mainland of Greece, I was the first refugee activist in that camp, and also working as a writer and as a teacher there as well. It was important for me to not let our voices get repressed in that condition, and to stand up for raising the voice of us as minority people, as displaced people, and showing our courage, our bravery, and changing the narration of the stories of refugees and displaced people as a dramatic narration into a bravery, into courage, and to show that how brave are those people that they leave the war and violence behind and they don't want to be part of it. And they put their lives in danger in order to make a safer future for themselves and their children, and also their next generation.
It's such a fantastic and important message. How did you come to discover poetry as your way to express yourself and to get your message out there?
Poetry came with all kind of feelings that I was not able to express them. So it may seem to be complicated to find the taste or that healing in the pain through poetry. But I think I found, poetry is so much political. And I think my poems are political because it was written in order to reflect the condition, to make the simple question, to read them and to know that we are not to know about the circumstances, but we are reflecting our anger, our pains, and our dreams into what we want. And instead of just keeping them inside us, we want to reflect it in the best possible way. So I think poetry is a very strong weapon, is a strong tool of expressing your feelings in so beautiful way, from pains to beauty. It was a brilliant journey for me as well, to understand myself and my feelings and to express the feelings of people that were around me.
That's fantastic. And we're very honoured that you have agreed to share some of the poetry from your most recent book, We Will Fly Higher, which we'll be talking about later on, I'm sure. So, Parwana, could you please form your first poem for us?
I would like to start with a poem that says, "We were in distress." On a dark, scary night, as the moon was smiling in the middle of the sea, we were in distress. My mother was crying, scared for us all in that angry, rough sea. We were in distress. Time was passing slowly, seconds were counted, danger was alerting us. We were in distress. Stars were sparkling, water was all around, babies were all crying. We were in distress. Thousands of dreams in the sea, many people's courage was put to the test. To reach safety, crossing the sea, we were in distress. Some holes in our rubber dinghy let the water in slowly. We took both our shoes off. We were in distress. We searched for something, nothing around to throw the water out of the dinghy. We were in distress. Our hearts were pulsing hard, our eyes were getting wet. We were sinking. We were in distress. The final moments were upon us. We reached the shore, exhausted, alone, distressed. We reached Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really, really enjoyed that. So let's talk about your time in Moria and then Ritsona refugee camps. Can you tell us a bit more about your experiences there and how you became involved in community organising and political activism?
Yeah. So after some days, I found out that there is a school that is run by the refugees themselves. And that was at the moment that I found that that's like self-organized initiatives running by the community themselves and giving educational opportunities for the refugees to learn and to get some sorts of education through the refugees in the community to the refugees. And it was taking place in sort of tents, that was built by the community themselves. And children were all sitting on the grounds, and there was a teacher. And I found that there's so much important because, there were less initiatives for the community to do at that time. And there was almost no educational opportunity for the children in the camp. So I wanted to become part of that initiatives. And later on, by support of the people that they were coming in the camp in order to see the condition, they found out this initiative so much important and they wanted to strengthen that. And it became wider and we could, give more opportunities for other refugees. And also in the mainland, because in the camps, not in the islands of Greece, that the condition was completely terrible, but also in the mainland, there was less educational opportunity for the children. So I became later on, I started working in that initiative as a teacher and then as a coordinator. And by having support of, finding some other teachers from the community, from different communities to teach the language to their communities as well, this became wider. And we could sort of, make a wider shadow for more children, for more people in different ages to get, different educational supports and also running different kind of activities through this initiative. I was also one of the many children that was so much passionate to start a school herself, because I was age to start my school and was dreaming for being, just in the class and having a teacher in front of myself and just to learn more and to improve my education. But it was not possible for different reasons. The first reason that was brought out through the authorities was that they didn't have buses. Honestly, one of the main problems that we were facing in the Ritsona refugee camp was lack of transportation. That was the time that started the campaign of freedom of movement, because we wanted to have connection and communication with the local community. We wanted to have the possibility to go easily to supermarkets. We wanted to have the possibility to easily go to hospitals, because there was nothing around. And if you search Ritsona refugee camp, you can find it in the middle of nowhere in the cereal factories, and that's it. So that was the reason that after some time that I found out that they are not to follow up the problem with education, I started a campaign of hashtag build schools, not walls. The reason that I started this campaign was that the government was supporting the project of building walls around the camp, but they were bringing excuses for our demand of going to school and having transportation. So that was the reason that I started hashtag build schools, not walls. Unfortunately, through this campaign, many people outside, they started, searching and looking about the problem of the education, and they started supporting it. And after 4 months, it became to the point that they, supported, not through the government, but also it was private support that they brought for the problem of the buses. And then around more than 400 children out of 658 children that they were excluded from education, and they were in the age of school. So they got this possibility to go to school. And I was really glad about it. And I'm really thankful of all those that they just beside me, and they put all their effort in order to make dream of 100 children to become real. But also it was brought out through some political activists in the in the parliament of Germany. So there were many people that they started following this problem and started talking about it and supporting the campaign, but also questioning the government that why not education but walls around the camp. We were feeling every day more exclusion, more being in more isolation, being under more controls that were not, of course, necessary. We wanted to be part of that community. We wanted to live in the same community. We wanted to know the neighborhoods. We wanted to know the local people and for them to know us, and to not have the only connection that was the media that was supported directly by the authorities, in that way. So honestly, that was, in many ways, I was talking about condition. And to be honest, to be a refugee and to live in a refugee community and to get your supports to live and to survive from the government was not something easy. It was always challenging for me. But the only thing that I believed in, it was needed for me to talk. And there was nothing to hide. And everything had to be revealed. And that the government had to answer. And so at some point, people were also putting their hope on me. And it was my responsibility that I felt inside myself not to stop it and to just continue and go on. And no matter that how weak I would seem or how small I would seem to be or how under question or just exposed to the media by the authorities and by the local people I was, but I just wanted to continue. Because I knew that there were many people that they were asking me to continue that, because it was a common fight. We were both sides wanted to this border go away. And that was the reason I started, like, my first book, My Pen Won't Break, but Borders Will. Because I just wanted to keep communicating with the local community through writing. And it happened. Many people started knowing about our condition. Many people started searching, coming and visiting. Many people were following, and they were always messaging me to continue and to write more, and that they were, willing to know more about the circumstances. So it was a chain of solidarity, sort of supporting me and motivating me and keeping this fire to flame inside me and to go on.
Yeah, I was going to ask about your first book, Letters from Moria, and its name, a brilliant name. My pen won't break the board as well. So, as your writing was starting to get more attention from a worldwide audience, so people were looking to you then to get these stories out there. Did you feel a sort of sense of duty to tell your story and to reach as wide an audience as you could?
I would never think that something like this would happen. I was always thinking that here's Europe, mother of freedom. People are those that they have the first words about education and about expression. So everybody had to have it. I would never think that something, this was needed from me to be done. Because I was always thinking that media here in Europe is so strong and they're writing. And I was like, we're living in that condition. It is not possible for the people in Europe not to know about our condition. And I was always feeling that how can it be possible for people to ask me to write? But they can come here, they can visit, and they can see with their own eyes. Or they already know about it, but they don't care. But I was wrong. I felt that I was wrong and I understood that. Then I continued writing, you know, because I was wrong thinking that people knew about condition. But honestly, we were kept away from the eyes of people, and our real life was kept hidden. And sort of authorities didn't want this shame and this scandal to be revealed, neither from the refugees living in the camps, nor from the local people, and not even the people from other European countries or any other country. And they just want to keep the condition the same and to control us the way that they want it. So I had this passion to continue writing. It always gave me the feeling to continue, and it was motivating me, getting recognized and having requests from different worldwide platforms to talk about my work. And I was trying with all the difficulties that I had to collaborate with all of them to bring the reality and the fact. Your media, those platforms that they were not talking about our realities, and there is no reason for you to hide that fact.
Yeah, absolutely. As you've mentioned the media, one of our previous episodes in this series was talking about the media and mentioned a 2019 Council of Europe report, which was very clear that Europe-wide coverage of refugee issues was very stigmatizing, very, very negative, and this was a huge problem. What was your experience of the media?
This is a good question, honestly, because this is something that I got in the point in the middle of my activism. And in the beginning, I didn't know anything about it because, honestly, I was experiencing everything alone. And I was finding myself completely alone. I was trying to find the activism of the people before me, the generation before me, activism of a young girl, maybe. Because being a girl and to do the activism is different than being a boy and do the activism. It is just different things that you experience. And I was looking for that, but I was not able to find it. One of the main points that I got to experience and was so much concrete and concerned to know it was the media. For me, the first thing about the media was that displaced people don't have their voice. The only voice that we have or may get is one, through authorities, and two, through the media platforms. So you need to be very careful about the platforms that you are reading and searching and following the news about it. Because all the information written about the refugees is not enough. It's not adequate. It needs to be more. It's not deep. It's not detailed. It's not even descriptive. It is not a reflection of the fact. The disasters that we are facing or we are living in cannot be written just in one simple paragraph. If you read that simple paragraph, it's only about our drama. It's nothing more. And this is what manipulates the people and the people not to care about condition, to feel that it is too much and it is every time. And I thought, people are coming. But why we are coming? Not even this reason is written. We are not numbers. We have been always represented as numbers. We are not only numbers. We have to flee our country. So the people that they don't know much about the political circumstances, they don't know, the depth of this story and this circle, They can only find us as numbers. Give the voice directly to refugees. It was my first demand. If you're inviting or making an event about refugees, they should have their voice, not any other person to be represent them. We have our voice. We know the information. We may not be experts. Honestly, to talk about the fact, you don't need to be an expert. They need to have their voice.
That's such an important point and very often overlooked. You've mentioned a few times now that being one of the few female activists, that there were specific challenges that you faced being a woman and being an activist. What are some of the challenges that you faced?
And the first time I experienced it in the Ritsona refugee camp, from the refugee community inside of the camp, because as I mentioned before, I was particularly and clearly the first refugee girl and Muslim activist, political activist in that camp, where there were 3,000 people, refugees, with the same background of, fleeing the country because of the war and persecution. They were not ready to accept me, to accept my voice and my activism, though they knew that I am standing to advocate their rights. But it was sort of that they were not ready because probably they didn't see such a thing in their country, and it was to not able or to not possibly not ready to just accept it also in that refugee camp as well. But it was also pushing me, because I wanted to show it that if I did it, I'm going to succeed. If I'm doing it, then your daughters, your sisters, your wives are also that strong to stand for it. So that was really hard also because, you want to get the first support from your community. And if you don't get the support from the community, you seem that there is no support for you. But I didn't stand because I wanted the support, because I believed in myself, so to say. And I really found this necessary to stand up. But after that, after getting and changing, honestly, this process of changing the mind of the refugee community was not something easy. To be honest, this process was really hard. It was really challenging, but it was amazing experience for me because I noticed that if I can change their mind and their perspective about myself, I can change the perspective of thousand other people that they live in Europe, because I already passed the biggest challenge. So the next one would not be just so hard for me. Bringing this conversation, I would like to read the poem that says, "This never-ending struggle. From east to west, from north to south, I call you. I call you to the world of war, where peace was the bride who dies. I call you to our struggles, where girls are on the front line. I call you to our protests, without a microphone, with one voice. I call you. Behind these walls meet our bright eyes. I call you to the world of burning hearts, where fists are raised and sails are up. I call you. I urge you. Come with us, join in our struggles. We demand our rights, though threatened and afraid, but still we resist. We will not stop and will not be stopped. We are soldiers without armor. Our armor is our posters. We fight without swords. Our swords are our banners. Loud and clear, we are an army with no horses. Our legs are enough. Our will is tough. We resist and will never stop. Thank you.
Fantastic. No, thank you. Really, really enjoyed it. Really, such a sort of an empowering kind of call to action style of poem, and it's quite rare. You don't often hear many depictions of refugees in such a sort of an empowering and sort of strong position. The common story, like you said, it's about the drama and it's about the conflict, never about the strength from that person or from the people going through that experience.
It's true. I think this was one of the reasons I wanted to also bring it in the poetry as well. Words are strong, and you can reflect any sin through poetry. Writing poem in a language that was not my mother language was not something hard for me because I was always communicating with people in English language. I was bringing my political thoughts and statements in English language. So writing poems as a first version in English was something really amazing for me because I was able to make this sense in English and basically with some easy words that are not complicated because our life is not so much complicated that people may feel. It's just to understand and just to believe that it is bravery and that's it. You will believe on us and our stories. So my poems are just simple words, simple verses, but the picture and the image and the way that I started to narrate each scene, each part, was something that honestly came through experiences, and that's the tension that was inside me, and I wanted to change it to something beautiful.
I think it would be impressive to be able to put experiences into words in their first language, let alone a second, third.
Yeah, it may also interest you because one of the title of one of my poems is in Greek.
Oh, wow, really?
Because yeah, but the poem is in English. So.
Wow, it's extremely impressive. So, what sort of things would you like to see change in the current situation, both from the top, from governments or places of power, but also generally, socially, in terms of people's attitudes and so on? What sort of things would you like to see change?
I think raising awareness and in different ways by giving the informations, bringing the direct reflection of the condition and letting them know that what has been going wrong with the information. This is a power that goes back to the people and then they can decide themselves. This is what I started doing by just raising awareness. That was my first plan and my first goal. The second one was that I wanted to, and I still want to keep communication and make communication of refugees and displaced people with the community that they live in. The third one is they want to break this isolation from the life of refugees that they live in the camps. And instead of that, to make it bring this possibility for them to live in the same community and have neighborhoods. The fourth one is to motivate the refugees themselves, and especially the young refugees, to start acting because I have seen it in so many different ways, so much like a movement, that is a movement. When they start as a movement and they bring it for the years later and they keep going on. I think the future is the future of us as young generation of refugees. So young refugees need to be aware of their rights, of the opportunities and the supports that can be around themselves and they can find. So by making this connection, I want to say that I am not alone and I am not the only refugee who could start acting and having political activism, but there are many others that they need the same support. The fifth one is by all this, I want to sort of break these borders, this border of not understanding each other. Border is not only in the lands, it is in the mind of people. That particularly these physical borders, then that does not make any sense because there is no way to stop people coming and passing the borders. But the only thing is that only those people are left behind that they didn't have the possibility to pass the borders. They are people with disabilities. They are vulnerable people. They are with disorders. And they are the only group of people that they are left. All others are to pass. And there is no way to stop it. So we are bringing these borders around ourselves in different ways. We are thinking we are not, particularly to fight against racism, because this is what I experienced in my life in different ways. And still experiencing it and not feeling myself, and always feeling myself as a third nation in the country. I believe that more refugees will start standing for their rights, and many, many other people will support it. Because this is the only way to just stop this cycle. Otherwise, we will be always we and others as they.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, and I really love that extension as well of the border from the sort of the physical border to the border that is sort of socializing people to encourage people to think of themselves as on one side of something, and therefore other people being on the other side of it, being different somehow, and that sort of othering process of how we think about people. That all this language around borders encourages people to think along. You mentioned racism there. What has been the impact of racism on yourself and your work, and what barriers does it present to ending borders?
When I started talking about the walls around the camp, many local people were clicking on me because of my religion, because of being Muslim, being a girl, and wearing hijab. And they were just clicking, and they were always exposing me for that, and that I cannot be part of the community unless I be one of them the way that they look like, and I need to look like as well. So this is like to be integrated, but in their willings. That was not what I was asking for. Integration should be accepting the other nationalities the way that they are and respecting their religion to give this freedom for them to express themselves in the society. That was also so much challenging. I found out that they also wanted to stop me. I was also happy about that because they were highlighting me in a negative way, but people were curious to know about me more. And I think the ones that they had a little of that education and that knowledge, they could find out the fact, that was really hard. Because I was also feeling threatened, and many solidarity groups were sometimes alerting me that I should not, just walk in the center of the city or in some specific regions alone, because that may be dangerous. Because I was getting so much exposed, and I was getting private messages from these people as threats. Just go back to your country, or, they were real threats, to be honest. That was hard, honestly.
People have been making threats to you. People,
yes.
As your profile as you become more well known, that the people have been threatening you.
Yes.
Wow.
And I was getting message from people that I should not be appeared in the center of the city so much, in some specific regions that may be dangerous for me. Because another journalist, Ingeborg, I think you may know her. She's from Holland, and she, with the Minister of Education from Holland, she asked directly about the pushbacks. And then there were some people, just threatening her by throwing stones on the window of her house. So I was also in the conversation that they were holding, talking about the pushbacks, being so much appeared in the media platforms and different events. That was the reason that I was getting threats so much. And I was honestly feeling in danger.
But you've kept going, but you've still carried on sort of promoting your voice. And have you ever wanted to stop, or?
No, honestly, no. I've never think of stopping this, because I didn't start it by their support. So I was not to stop it by their reaction, negative reactions. So there was no reason for me to stop it.
Fantastic.
Even that alert was not a reason for me to stop.
Well, as an act of solidarity support, we obviously want to support the self-organisation that refugees are doing in the UK, and obviously Germany and Greece and elsewhere, and across Europe and across the world. What could our listeners do, in your opinion, to support, to help against the pushback against refugees?
First of all, they need to know about the circumstances, what's happening on the borders. They need to know what organizations are acting and what organizations are honest and they are trustful, to other people and the work that they do. And of course, all of them with so much respect and so much solidarity. But without being and getting this education, you cannot make any changes, and you cannot know how to talk about condition. And sometimes people want to talk, but they use statements that are not right about us, and it is a very sensitive issue. So people who want to talk need to know what they're talking. And sometimes instead of bringing goodness, it brings misunderstanding. I think there are hundreds of ways for them to show their support. I believe that those that are willing, they find it. And just by finding the first person, you get to know this chain. And the chain of people that they are helping refugees is so much connected. You find the first person and you get to know many others. And of course, if anyone particularly, I am announcing it. If anyone particularly want to know anything or more information, or they have some plans but they don't know how to make it real, they can simply contact me. And with so much pleasure, I would be happy to share the information, to make contacts and anything that I can do.
It's a fantastic message. So, your recently released book, We Will Fly Higher, which came out in December 2022. I understand you have 2 poems for us from this.
Thank you very much. Before reading the 2 last poems that I wanted to read to your audiences, I want to say that when I was writing all these poems in Ritsona refugee camp, I always had a dream to have the book in my hand and to touch it, because it is really different to write them and to also see it in front of yourself and to see that these are words, not me, but many other people. And I hope that these words will be shared with many people. And this is what I was meant by breaking borders, because by sharing these words, you are breaking the borders. And you're letting our voice and our words to travel what we could not do with documents, but our words will do it. And I'm sure that you will not let this journey of our words to be stopped, and it will be shared with so many people. And I would like to thank you for all the people that they have supported me to publish it and to make it available for those that they want to read and share it with others. Number 4. We are burning. It is not to mark the date, it's to raise the alarm. The fire has burned our homes. The fire has burned our schools. The fire has burned our hospitals. We are burning. We searched for your eyes. You have turned them away. You have hidden your faces. Who is the criminal? Not the fire, for sure. Who shall pay for the life of the burned child? Who shall answer the mother never to touch her child again? Who can answer? Who dares imagine the screams of the baby? The baby was crying, was crying, was crying. The baby was burning, a bundle of coal left. Where are those who cursed us? Those afraid we threatened their will? Come in and see. Do you dare to look at the sun? Better avert your eyes. Hide and lock yourself in your homes. We are silent so that you hear us. Author's footnote. This poem was written with all respect and love to the family of young child who lost his life, burning in the fire accident in Moria, Lesbos, at the beginning of 2020.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Extremely touching and moving poem there. And thank you so much for sharing. And I understand you have one more for us as well.
So the last one I would like to read, the poem that is called The Displaced. Page 57. The Displaced. Once upon a time, from a wounded land, my family was pushed to leave our homeland. I was asked to pack all my courage in one bag. Will we ever be back to my mother's soil? For the last time, I hugged the air deeply. I held to my heart the smile of most loved friends. My friends, will I ever see them again? I'm sending my warmest greetings to all of them. From the day I was born, formed of love, for 9 months in the womb of my mom, I was not told I would leave my home one day. Who knows of the next day, of our fate? I was not taught to fight, but as a displaced one, I had to learn how to stay strong against all odds. What was not given to me in life is to find the truth on my own way, to separate goodness from badness, and ask those who have experienced both. I'm displaced. My sisters too, like my ancestors decades ago. I'm displaced like a migratory bird, like blossoms of spring after a strong wind. I'm displaced like shells washed on the shore, like fallen golden leaves in the fall. I'm displaced with my memories, with my soul and my mind. I escaped leaving the war behind, but my resilience is strong to use my voice and sketch a new world with my words. Displacement is not a symbol, a label exclusive of the brown, the black, the other ones. Displacement is colorblind. It is not a name, shall not be ashamed. It's not to live in fear. It's not to live in jail with violence. You cannot draw the curtain to the realities once you see the truth. Don't stay deaf or blind. Open your eyes. Thousands of us are left behind, but we are not to stay silent. We will go ahead with closed fists and open minds. The day when everyone will be free, like tides of an ocean, rays of sunshine on an iceberg, we will make it. The day that freedom won't be a dream, we will aim for it. Those who lost their lives in the sea, we won't forget them. Those who wait behind barbed wires, we won't forget them. With those who have been in the front line, we will raise the sails of freedom. I am committed to that struggle, for no one is free until we are.
Thank you so much. That's a really bold, and I like after the conversation to end on that note of there is that optimism in there in that poem, I think, and that look towards the future that's coming, which I think is a fantastic note for us to end on. So what's next for you, Parwana?
Honestly, the next step is always a secret.
Okay, so a little bit of mystery.
Yeah, but because everything is going to be so much interconnected and then something new is going to be brought up. But this time you will see any kind of activity of myself through the experiences that I got. And I want to also give this news that I'm currently working on my new book that fortunately will come out on 2025. That is something that I think everyone who knows about that story want to know about this journey, and all those that they want to know about the activism of refugees and the way that they can also get their voices. Also, in political activism, you will see some more people around me, something very strong, something very resistant, and something very resilient. But this could be also only a hint. I cannot say all this story. I'm also myself so much excited to see this plan happen and to see it, becoming real. Thank you very much for always reading and sharing our words. Thank you for breaking these borders. Thank you for giving this feeling that we are always together and we are not alone. We were not alone in this journey. And the reason that we had this courage to leave our homes that was in the middle of war and violence, and to leave that violence behind, not to become violent ourselves and our next generation, was that we knew that there are people supporting us. So thank you for being with us and acting beyond borders, with many loves and strengths and a mountain of power from myself to all of you.
Parwana Amiri, thank you so much for coming on the Rebel Justice podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, and we wish you all the very best in the future with your mysterious next steps.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you'd like to follow Parwana and her work, you can do so on Twitter at Parwana_Amiri. And if you'd like to get a copy of We Will Fly Higher, her new book from which the poems we heard this episode were taken, you can find it online at retailers such as Amazon and the Book Depository, or directly from the publisher's website, palewellpress.co.uk. We aim to discuss all forms of detention and incarceration in our society, and we hope you found this series interesting. On our next episode, Farah will be speaking to the infamous Anna Delvey, whose life was recently made into the subject of Netflix's hit show Inventing Anna. Looking beyond the headlines and scandals, Farah will be talking about the realities of how prison has impacted on Anna, as well as her creativity and recent art projects. Anna Delvey also features on the cover of our latest issue, which is out now. You can find out more at theviewmag.org.uk. And thank you so much for listening to the Rebel Justice Podcast.